Welcome to Whispers to a Bride, where we talk about the stuff no one else is talking about. We are going deep on the emotional aspects of getting married, the stress, drama, and turbulence that affects your own sense of identity and your closest relationships. We are talking about what it means to be a bride and how to navigate this sacred time with more grace and ease. I'm your host, Kara Gassabay. As a life coach and therapist, I'm going to be sharing super practical tips so that you can not only rise to the occasion of your wedding, but also your life. Hello, and welcome back. Today, we are talking about going to bed angry, right? This is just one of those like age-old sort of marriage advice, little tidbits that people give you all the time. Like if you're at a bridal shower and people like pass around like those little booklets to write like advice for the couple getting married, almost always somebody says, never go to bed angry, right? Like it's almost like this tried and true advice that just feels very like, oh yeah, of course, obviously, or like it feels really safe. Like, okay, if we can go through lots of ups and downs and dramas, but like if we just don't go to bed angry, then we know we're safe and we're bonded and we're okay and we're doing this marriage thing right. And I just want to take another look at that because I have come to really disagree with it. Having been married now for 8 years, which again does not make me an expert, but it does make me know something. And I feel like I have really come to the conclusion that sometimes going to bed when you're angry is like the best thing you can do. And I want to talk a little bit about why that is. And there is this kind of fun Huffington Post article, 7 reasons why it's totally okay to go to bed angry. So I thought I would sort of use that as a little framework just to walk us through. I mean, a couple different ways to think about the ways in which it is really okay to go to bed angry. And I am like putting my stake in the ground that like I really do not stress anymore about going to bed angry and going to bed with the feeling that like we are not completely on the same page. We haven't figured it all out. There's no resolution. The apology situation isn't like complete and like the bond isn't completely perfectly restored. Like I used to want that. And I used to think it was necessary and important and critical. And I've really, really changed my mind over the years on that. And I think it's just brought so much lightness and ease into our relationship when we don't have the pressure to get everything tidied up and perfectly put a bow on it before bed, right? Because sometimes the arguments don't start until later in the night. And like I'm going to go through right now, there's lots of reasons why like it is not only is it not always possible, but it can be like a really bad idea. And that advice can go really, really sideways if you aren't taking into consideration these ideas. So one of the major places to start is just the idea that like being tired, just fatigue itself, will totally exacerbate conflict, right? When you're exhausted, you're going to be irritable, you're going to be snippy, you're going to be short, and you're not going to be your best self. You're not going to bring your like most capable problem-solving skills to the table. So being tired is a good reason to go to bed. Conflict or no conflict, sleep is key. Also, obviously, side note, if you've been drinking and you're in a fight, please do yourself a favor and go to bed. There is nothing good that's going to come from trying to like argue when you are not in the right frame of mind. So if you're at all intoxicated, please go to bed and revisit it in the morning because there's nothing that's going to come from that. The other thing is when you are in a fight and you're just really worked up, you have probably already gotten your body into sort of that fight or flight response. Your nervous system is completely like on a level 10. You are dysregulated. You are not fully like present and functioning and thinking with all of the parts of your brain that you normally would be. And so that is just not a great place to be. to have an argument with someone you love, especially. So when you are in that fight or flight mode and you're feeling like the stress hormones and you're feeling like the increased heart rate, going to bed can be the most generous thing you can do for yourself and your partner so that you can revisit this when you have calmed your nervous system, you're not feeling threatened and in that sort of desperate, dramatic place. The other thing, and I think this really is key for me, is sometimes you just need a little time to process your feelings. So, like, if you are triggered and angry, right, as a part of this conflict, it can be very overwhelming to the system. And you might not be able to connect your outsized emotions with like your logical argument in a way that makes sense in the conflict. And that's often it's that disconnect where it's like, I am feeling like really, really intensely about this, but like I can't articulate it in a way that like that adds up or that makes sense. And so then my partner is more just being like, what are you talking? Like you're so out of it. Like that doesn't make sense. And you're overreacting and all of that stuff. And so I think that overnight, right, your brain does a lot of processing and it can sort of bring those things together, right? Like your feelings with your thoughts and your logical argument and the point that you're trying to make all can sort of coalesce and come together. Just like when you're studying for an exam, right? They say that sleep is the time where your brain like makes a lot of the connection and synthesizes information. So sleep can really help you have that argument in a really cogent way later. Other reason that it's better to just go to bed is if this conflict is something that is like deep and difficult and you've pretty much decided that like you need a mediator, you need an expert, you need a therapist, you need someone else to help you guys create a space, a productive space to have this argument because you've been there and you've done this a million times and you always end up in the same stuck place. Let's really give ourselves a minute and just go to bed instead of just repeating this really old pattern that has probably shown that it needs a different type of intervention. So another good reason. And then number 7, which also I'm a huge, huge not fan of this. This happens to me all the time. When you like lose sight of what you were arguing about in the first place. Like I notice with me, like I can get worked up and I'm making my point and I'm like blah 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 blah. And then like and it keeps going. And then all these other topics come in. And then I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm still mad, but now I'm like confused because I don't even know like where I was going, but I remember it mattered that like a lot can happen in a conflict, especially if you've got like kids that you're tending to in the meantime and phones are ringing and people are coming to the door. Like a lot, you can get distracted. And then sometimes, again, going to bed is the best, most loving thing you can do for yourself and your partner. Because in the morning, you'll wake up and sometimes it will have gone away. It will have dissipated and disappeared because it was like about nothing in the first place, which many arguments are. They're just us being really activated or us being overwhelmed or insulted or fed up or overstimulated and overstretched and overwhelmed, right? And then you wake up and you're like, I'm cool. I'm fine. I know I was mad and we were fighting, but like, I'm really fine. Or you can wake up and be like, I understand really, like, this really hurt me, or this thing feels unresolved. And then you can go about it very differently. So I get it. Your grandmother, your mother, they're all going to tell you don't go to bed angry and that somehow that has saved everything. But I think what they probably mean is that, like, going to bed can solve your anger. Just like with a toddler, you're like, don't try to, like, do anything if they're hungry or tired, right? Like, don't get into conflict. You got to solve for the body's needs first. And going to sleep is one way of really doing that for yourself. So go to bed angry. I'm giving you permission. Take that advice with a grain of salt. Obviously, the things that you can wrap up, please do. But the times when you can't, you're allowed to say, hey, I'm still really upset, but also like, let's go to bed. And you can still say, I love you and still be angry and still be mid conflict and still get the sleep that you need and deserve. It's going to work out better. Trust me. Don't live in this like fear that like there's some weird magical spell that happens to couples that like go to bed angry. There isn't. And I'm here to tell you from my firsthand experience that it goes like a lot better if I just like go to sleep. So I hope this has been helpful. I love to chat some marriage prep with you guys. Feel free to reach out with any other topics you want me to cover. And don't forget to book your session. I love helping my brides deal with the overwhelm and anxiety and family drama, friendship conflict, all the stuff that happens when we are preparing for our big day and in those months following the wedding. A lot can go on. So, KaraWarney.com. Cannot wait to connect. Find me on the Insta, the TikTok, Kara the Bridal Coach. And until next time, I am wishing you nothing but bridal bliss.